Hello and welcome. I'm Sam Califer, your host for Vision, the show where we talk all about the College of Arts and Sciences as well as its faculty and students. Today I'm joined by Julie Pitts, an instructor in the Department of Mathematics and Statistics. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited to speak with you today. And to start, I was hoping you could just tell me a bit about yourself and how you came to Mississippi State.
Well, I grew up in Columbus, so I grew up going to all the football games. And I got my bachelor's degree from Mississippi College, but my master's from Mississippi State.
There you go.
I taught for a few years at EMCC, but in 2009, I came to Mississippi State to start teaching here and been here since 2009.
Sure, yeah, it's so good to hear that you're from the area and you could come back and make a difference, and so that's great to hear. And I wanted to have you on because you just recently won an MSU Community Engagement Award for your project, MSU Math Day at the Partnership Middle School. And so I was hoping you could tell me a bit about that and what are you trying to accomplish through it?
Well, with the MSU Math Day, we have a Stats Day in the spring and a Pizza Day in the fall. In the spring, we have one coming up in just about a month.
Oh, great.
The students will learn how to find batting averages. We first show them how to do the averages using local or formal baseball players. And then they go outside and my Math for Elementary Ed students toss balls to them. And they record whether they hit or miss the balls. Then they come back inside and they show the students how to find their own batting averages.
Wow.
And then in the fall, we use pizza toppings and ingredients in order for them to use ratios and proportions and a little bit about geometry, and then Domino's treats them to an actual pizza lunch.
I love that. I mean, it's hard to beat baseball and pizza, and so I'm glad that you can have this fun activity for our young students here in the area. And how do you see the skills they develop during these days? How do they translate to the classroom?
Well, after each of the days, I meet with the math teachers at the partnership school, and we make sure that we have met the core, Mississippi core standards, and to see if there's other ways we can improve. But they also, when they start teaching averages to their students, the students are already excited about it because they have had those fun days where they went outside and, did the baseball. And the MSU Diamond Girls help us on the baseball days too.
Oh, great.
So they're very excited when they show up. But the students are already excited about that. Most of the time it's the first time they've seen averages, so it's a fun way to introduce that to them. In the fall, they usually have seen a little bit about ratios and proportions, but it's just a fun way to reinforce what they've already learned in the classroom. It's also a way to show them what we're doing at Mississippi State. All of the students that I bring over, which is about 80 students, want to be elementary ed teachers.
Wow. So
they can see things that we do at Mississippi State are also fun, and that we are using those, in real life to help teach the students.
Yeah, I love that. You're saying they're excited about it, and I think that's so important. Growing up, I was always someone who was intimidated by math, and so I really appreciate the efforts to make math fun, show that it's applicable to the real world, and just useful in everyday life. And so after you've had these partnership days, how have you seen the activities impact their attitude towards math and education?
The teachers tell us that they're very excited about math, that they are more willing to learn about the math, and they are in the spring when we do the 6th grade, and then the fall 7th grade, the 7th graders have already done the Stats Day from the spring. So they are very excited to learn that we're coming back and teaching them something else, and they realize that at MSU, we do fun things, but educational things, so it piques their interest in coming to MSU, so that when they come over to MSU for other things, they often ask, hey, can we go to the math department to see the students, who taught them?
Yeah.
And hopefully it'll help retain their interest in Mississippi State so that as they get older, they'll be interested in coming to Mississippi State as students themselves.
Oh, I'm sure. I had like field days when I was a kid, and those memories stay with you so long. And so just, they know that it came from MSU, and I'm sure they appreciate that effort. And so I love hearing about this, and I want to know, where did you get the idea to start MSU Math Day, and does it feed into your teaching philosophy at all?
Well, I am not real sure where I got the idea.
Sure.
I just wanted my math for elementary ed students to have some time to interact with the students that they want to teach, because before this, we would talk about how to teach students, but I didn't feel like they were getting a lot of time with students. My classes have freshmen through seniors, so some of the juniors and seniors were in the area where they were doing their observation hours, but my freshmen and sophomores were not doing any kind of interaction with the younger students.
Right.
So I wanted to come up with something where they could actually interact with students and make sure that this is something that they actually wanted to do,
right,
to teach, elementary students. And so I just decided, hey, I think baseball would be fun. Jonathan Eaton is in charge of the Diamond Girls, and he used to be a math stats teacher.
Oh, interesting.
So I talked with him about it. He thought it would be a fun project. So the two of us kind of collaborated on this first stats day.
Yeah.
And then for the pizza day, I give them a small ingredient list of how to make a pizza dough. And then we divide them into groups. The students have to figure out how to make pizza dough for the entire class. And as each group figures out their ingredient, they go up to the beginning of the class and actually put that ingredient in a bowl, and then they can mix the ingredients together, which is very sticky and yucky and their favorite part.
Right.
And that kind of came about because my daughter was making brownies for a class, and she had to make it for a large class, and she was asking me, how do I change this, from just what's on the box,
right,
to make it for her entire class. And so that was what gave me the idea to do the proportions, and we just kind of expanded it from there.
Yeah, I love to hear that. I mean, you're just taking all of the resources available to you, all of the connections you have, and even the example of your daughter making brownies, that's such a real world example. She was trying to do that. And so it's so interesting to see you integrate that into your instruction. And what you were saying with your own college students, it's such a win-win, because not only do the middle school students and the younger students benefit, but these college students who are training to become educators themselves, it's such a great hands-on experience. And so what kind of insight do you think they gain from this kind of work?
I think they realize how much work it actually is to work with elementary students. I think sometimes they think it's just going to be, let me walk in the door,
right,
and they're going to sit very quietly the entire time I'm going to teach. And they learn very quickly that elementary students are full of energy,
right,
and they really have to keep their attention. It's very eye-opening to them, not only about how much energy the students have, but also how smart the students are.
right,
Because a lot of times they said, wow, this student came up to me and said this, and they didn't realize, how insightful the elementary students would be also. But they help come up with some of the lesson plans so that every year it's slightly different, and they realize how much work really goes into a lesson plan before you can go to the school, because in the spring they teach for an hour, and then we switch to different pods for the second hour, and they realize how many hours of work have to go into just a 1 hour lesson plan.
Right.
And before that, they didn't really realize how much work. And as we're doing this work for the 1 hour lesson plan, they kind of think, wow, we're doing so much, and she's over preparing us. And then they get in there and they realize, oh yeah, we had to have every minute planned for and structured. And so I think it really helps them realize how much work it's going to take them to be a teacher. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize, how much, effort and work goes into being a teacher, and how many after school hours teachers spend planning their day and their lessons and stuff.
Right. It gives them such a good perspective that they don't get until they're a senior or teaching, and by then it's too late. And so, even if someone does realize maybe this isn't the career for me, it's better that they learn it then. And then, but I'm sure the bigger percentage, it just opens their eyes to the work, but it prepares them more for the job that they're getting into, and it lets them be more effective and see different types of teaching. And so I think there's so much benefit all around. And so I'm glad we got to talk about that today. And before we end, I wanted to ask, what are your plans for future MSU Math Days?
I'm working with the teachers out there to see other ideas that we might come up with. Right now, we do plan on keeping the Stats Day in the spring and the Pizza Day in the fall. We are hoping that we could expand on those and add extra days to it. We're just trying to see what the math budget will allow,
right,
and what time, in our schedule will allow. There is a beautiful garden that they do out there, and so we're trying maybe to work with that and see how maybe we could, here again, use the ingredients from the garden with the food that they grow and see if we can work with that some.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to see different things that they have out there and incorporate those. And I don't know, just we have some ideas in the works, but we haven't quite, expanded those all the way yet.
Right. Yeah, you have such a good base already, and so I think there's buy-in, and so I'm just excited to see how it grows and what other lessons, you and your students develop. Yeah.
We are doing they are judging the lower elementary science fair this year. I know that's not with the partnership school, but the students are judging the lower science fair, which is kindergarten through 5th grade.
Sure.
So they will be doing that, which is even a different group of students.
Right, but just more examples of college students getting to engage with the students they'll be teaching and showing them what the career will ask them to do. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
It was great speaking with you, and thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Vision. We'll see you next time.